Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. 90Ds Sarper and Shekinah were married in a bedding ceremony. 90-day fiancé stars Sarper Given and Shekinah Garner had a bedding ceremony to make their marriage official. Since Sarper and Shekinah love the lounge life, having a bedding bed wedding was the perfect ceremony concept. In a joint post, Shekinah and Sarper wrote, "On 11/11/2024, we were bedded, not just as husband and wife, but as soulmates who crossed oceans, cultures, and time zones for love. We met in Turkey 3 years ago, not knowing that a single encounter would rewrite our lives. What followed was a love story written in flight miles. 14 trips across the ocean just to be close. Every mile was for this moment. And now, one final flight together to the US, where we begin our forever under one roof, no borders between us, only love." Sharing our journey on the show meant opening our hearts to the world. Being the 90th couple to marry in the franchise, that's the kind of magic you can't script. From Turkey to today, from distance to I do, our bed is forever our beginning. About a year ago, Shekinah stood by her man, even calling out the slut-shaming Sarper endured. After Sarper admitted that he slept with over 2,500 women, Shekinah used her Instagram platform to speak out. "I think it's terrible in this day and age to essentially be slut-shaming people, which is what that is, judging someone based on their body count. That's so demeaning, it's so wrong. He's a grown man, he wasn't doing anything wrong. Do I think that was a good choice or showed a lot of integrity? No, but I love him and I trust him. I think that's in his past." We are happy to hear Sarper and Shekinah were able to put all their drama to bed. In a franchise filled with whirlwind romances, dramatic ultimatums, and eyebrow-raising cultural clashes, 90-Day Fiancé has never shied away from capturing love in all its complicated, chaotic glory. But no couple has ignited curiosity quite like Sarper and Shekinah, the Turkish heartthrob and the bold, unapologetic American firecracker, who sealed their passionate love story in what fans are calling one of the most unique weddings in 90-day history, a bedding ceremony. Yes, you read that right. A bedding ceremony, not your typical vows and vows of silence affair. This was sensuality dressed in silk, romance lit by candlelight, and tradition turned on its head. When East meets Sass, Sarper, a personal trainer with model looks and a reputation for past Playboy antics, first made waves on the show for his strict control over Shekinah's workouts and wardrobe. Meanwhile, Shekinah, a Beverly Hills esthetician with an electric personality, was anything but submissive. Their on-screen chemistry was undeniable, part fairy tale, part Greek tragedy, and all fire. At first, fans were skeptical. The couple's explosive arguments, extreme flirtation, and cultural friction sparked debate across social media. Yet underneath the glamour, eyeliner, and emotional whiplash, something real simmered between them. And against all odds, it was Sarper who surprised everyone by proposing in true Ottoman fashion. During a belly dancing performance in Istanbul, surrounded by rose petals, with Shekinah's favorite crystals embedded in the ring box. Planning a wedding, or a fever dream. Planning their wedding was, in Shekinah's words, like designing a runway show with a dash of Game of Thrones and a pinch of 50 Shades. The couple opted not for a traditional Western ceremony, but for something deeply symbolic and a little risque. Sarper, proud of his Turkish roots, suggested a nod to an ancient tradition once common in Anatolia, the bedding ceremony. Traditionally, a bedding ceremony is the symbolic, and sometimes public, consummation of a marriage, often occurring right after the wedding celebration. In many old cultures, it was both a ritual and a rite of passage, sometimes watched over by elders or midwives to ensure the union was sealed. Naturally, this raised eyebrows, but Sarper and Shekinah reinterpreted it their own way. We weren't going to do the medieval version, obviously, Shekinah laughed in a confessional. But we wanted something intimate, symbolic, and way more us than just cutting cake and dancing to Bruno Mars. The ceremony that broke the internet. The wedding took place on a secluded terrace in Bodrum, overlooking the Aegean Sea. Shekinah wore a dramatic, custom-made gown with sheer panels and metallic embroidery that looked like it was stitched with moonlight. Sarper looked regal in a tailored white suit inspired by Turkish princely robes, complete with gold accents and a sapphire-studded brooch, his gift from Shekinah. After the vows, which included some tearful, unscripted lines about accepting each other in fitness and in fierce independence, the guests were guided to a tented area adorned with Persian carpets, low lanterns, and an opulent four-poster bed dressed in ivory silk. This, Shekinah declared, taking the mic and motioning to the setup behind her, is where our forever starts, but not in the way you're thinking. Relax, Aunt Janice. Instead of vanishing to a honeymoon suite, the couple turned their bedding ceremony into an artistic performance. They laid together on the bed, surrounded by petals and incense, while a live musician played the oud. Instead of intimacy behind closed doors, they exchanged private vows whispered into each other's ears, and hand-fasted with a silk cord blessed by Sarper's grandmother. It's about spiritual union, Sarper explained to the camera. In my culture, we honor passion, yes, but also sacred commitment. The bed symbolizes a place of trust, renewal, and closeness. And then, in true Shekinah fashion, she winked and added, and, yeah, it doesn't hurt that Sarper looks like a Greek god lying in satin. The guests were shocked and kind of into it. If you're wondering what the guests thought, they were baffled, amused, and eventually enchanted. Sarper's more conservative relatives were skeptical at first, but once they understood the symbolism, many found it surprisingly moving. Shekinah's friends, including her bestie Ravenna, who wore sequins and carried sage in her purse, declared it the most sensual wedding of the decade. And fans? Twitter, or rather X, erupted. After the ceremony, the couple didn't immediately jet off to a luxury resort. Instead, they stayed in Bodrum for a private 3-day honeymoon, no cameras allowed. TLC producers confirmed that filming was paused to respect the couple's wishes, though rumors suggest the footage of the bedding ceremony alone may be spun into a wedding special. Shekinah has hinted at launching her own spiritual beauty brand, inspired by the fusion of love, wellness, and cultural rituals she experienced in Turkey. Sarper, meanwhile, is reportedly working on a relationship podcast titled The Bedroom Talks, aiming to explore intimacy and masculinity in modern love. Their dynamic remains as intense as ever. In a recent Instagram Live, Shekinah admitted they still argue over fridge organization and Spotify playlists, but also said, "I married my best friend, and he still makes me feel like the only woman in the world, even when I'm yelling at him for stealing my moisturizer." Love their way. In a franchise filled with skepticism, Sarper and Shekinah did something remarkable. They defied expectations, rewrote the rules, and turned a controversial tradition into a statement about modern love. Their bedding ceremony wasn't about shock value. It was about soul connection, as sensual as it was sacred, as bold as their personalities, and as unforgettable as their love story. And in a world where authenticity often gets lost behind filters and editing, these two showed us that passion, commitment, and creativity can coexist, even, maybe especially, when silk sheets are involved.